How is the coronavirus affecting Valley business? Ask the experts now at 490-5858. This is News Talk 580-1059 KMJ. Here's your host, Philip and Skip.
5:06 at KMJ, switching gears for another installment of Ask the Experts, a chance for you to interact with the business leaders in our community that are getting that 30,000-foot view on how coronavirus is affecting not just their business, but their employees and their customers. And we're very pleased today to welcome back to KMJ a good friend of the show, a good friend of the station, Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros. Chris, thank you for giving us time this afternoon.
Hey, thanks for having me, Philip.
For folks who haven't had a chance to meet you yet, can you tell us a little bit about what Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros do?
Sure. We are a provider of electrical and solar services here in the Central Valley area. We also maintain a lot of generating facilities, including residential and commercial facilities in the area. So we've been in business for about 10 years, and we have about 85 employees.
So, Chris, for the folks who I saw standing in line at Home Depot this weekend, 100 deep, all the way back to Boot Barn, I know that people are still thinking about taking care of their home, upgrading their home, and solar has to be a piece of that. For somebody who's on that tipping point, they're considering it. What do you think the number one factor is for somebody who's considering solar to look at?
You know, I think the number one thing is savings. The power bills that everybody, gets on a monthly basis have been going up year over year. And frankly, people, they get tired of paying those power bills. And here in the Valley, it gets so hot. You got to run the air conditioner if you're going to live. And so I think savings is the number one. And some people are just not happy with the utility company. You'd be amazed how many customers tell me that's their number one driver. They just want to shake the utility company once and for all.
Oh, sure. With the news cycle we've had for the past 2 years, that doesn't surprise me even a little bit.
Exactly.
For somebody who's gonna sit down and look at the potential savings, you and I talked about this a little bit. My power bill, I average $250 a month. Am I going to be able to employ your service in a way that's going to be beneficial to me price-wise? What's the timeline look like if I'm in that price range?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to look at solar as a long-term investment. I don't want to call it like life insurance, but it's a long-term investment. You got to look at your plans for staying there in the house. At a $250 per month cost, if you're going to be in the house for more than 5 years and you have the ability to take advantage of that federal tax credit, which is currently at 26%, you can see a payback as little as 4.5 or 5 years. Oftentimes, folks, even if they've got cash, sitting somewhere where they could purchase their solar system outright immediately, they oftentimes prefer a financing option. So they're able to take that long-term savings and spread it out over a 10 or 12 or 15 or 20-year period, which allows them to see immediate monthly savings while getting the benefits of ownership. There are still companies out there who offer those third-party owned systems, those leases and those power purchase agreements, and everybody should really explore all their options. But I'd say if you plan on staying in that house long-term, a monthly cost of $250, that's going to go nowhere but up. And I would definitely recommend at least getting some quotes and getting familiar with how the numbers look.
Chris, I think we're going to see that consumption is going to go up now, especially as people are working from home and maybe in the past hadn't thought about, I'm not home during the day. I'm not having to pay those bills, so maybe it doesn't make sense. Do you anticipate you are going to see more of this because so many people are working at home and using their own utilities?
We've had that conversation internally, and we are expecting that. I think a lot of people are concerned right now, and they're a little gun-shy making a big purchase or a big decision right now with so much uncertainty. However, you're spot on. They're consuming more power while they're at home, and they know those summer bills are coming. So we're expecting kind of a pent-up demand that will kind of break loose, if you will, as soon as some of these COVID-19 concerns, go away. Obviously, there's a lot of unknowns there. But, yeah, power bills are definitely going to go up, and we're expecting solar to be kind of a countercyclical product that increases in demand once some of those uncertainties are better known to the public. A lot of people are just scared right now, and they're not sure if they want to make a big decision like this until they have more information about their employment. And
it's kind of a strange dichotomy, because this is a time where you would really reap the benefit of having it, but everybody's scared and kind of uncertain about what the future holds. Have you seen an increase, or is there a depression in the industry right now as everybody kind of holds it closer to the vest?
A lot of people, there's been a decrease in the last few weeks, and we expected that with the shelter-in-place order. But at the same time, typically on an annual basis, March and April are some of the more busy months because people, they've been discussing it, amongst their, husband and wife, talking about it for years, and they go, okay, this summer we're going to go solar, and we want to get it in before those summer bills come. So, March and April are always busy, but we've seen a significant reduction, and I've got other colleagues in the industry, and they've seen the same thing.
Our guest for this installment of Ask the Experts is Chris Moran from Solar Maintenance Pros and Solar Negotiators. If you have a question about solar, get on the phone, 490-5858 or 800-776-5858. Chris, one of the things that's been rattling around in my head, because I'm in the market for a house, I'm going to be buying something definitely within the next 12 months, hopefully within the next 6. My wife loves old houses, and we've been looking at some of the places in Tower District that are, they're 1920s era houses. If somebody's already there, or somebody's considering that as a purchase, is there a way to install solar? Because I know that those roofs aren't going to hold it up quite the same way, but is there a way to take advantage of what you got?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I just had a customer in escrow to purchase a house in one of the historical districts over in Tower, and they had these exact concerns. Roofs were not constructed back then the way they are, today. What I would recommend is if you're set on going solar on a home that you want to purchase in one of those areas, would be to give us a call, or a company like us who can come out and give you a good kind of an audit, if you will, take a look at the home and its suitability for solar. We can always install a structure that's, detached from the home as an option. Sometimes you can run into some problems with proximity to the property line, but those older homes really have to be looked at on a case-by-case basis.
Chris, you brought up the structure that's separate from the home, and my dad did something similar with the properties he has and kind of created this power grid. What opportunities are there available for people who have larger properties, or maybe this is the time that people might be looking into this to help with their business expenses and their utility bills for running a business?
Are you referring to a small business to run out of the home?
Yeah, or just I think of some of our farming listeners who,
Yep.
might have multiple buildings that need to be run off of solar. Is that something that you would recommend right now to make that transition over as businesses are having to get kind of scrappy with addressing their expenses as a result of COVID-19?
Yeah, certainly. And if you're the type of business that has an ongoing expense for electricity, and you're not going anywhere, I have kind of this old, it's never too soon to go solar. So, but at the same time, businesses can already write off their electricity as an expense. So they're looking at the expenditure in terms of cash flow and tax subsidies and the ability to accelerate the depreciation on some of these investments. So there are parking structure options if you're limited on space. There are ground mount options if you've got lots of space. And it really depends on the business. But it's one of those, if the business is going to be there, if there's tax equity that the business sees year over year, and they have a good relationship with their bank, or if they're interested in a financing option if they don't have the cash, long term, the regulatory environment right now and the requirement for the utility to receive overproduction and give credit for it, solar is still a very, very solid investment for pretty much any business or residence in the area.
We're talking to Chris Moran with Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros. David, I see you there. We're going to get to calls here in just a minute. If you have a question for Chris about solar, maybe you want it for your house, maybe you want it for your business, maybe you've already got it and you want to know about expanding it, improving it, updating it. 490-5858 is the number here. 800-776-5858. It's Ask the Experts with Solar Negotiators on News Talk 580 and 105.9 KMJ. 520 on KMJ. Ask the Experts underway right now. Our expert today, Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros. Your calls, welcome at 490-5858 and 800-776-5858. If you want to know about installing it, if you want to know about whether or not a system is right for you, if you've got a system and you've got questions about maintaining it and upgrading it, I feel real confident saying that Chris Moran has an encyclopedic knowledge of how to take care of solar systems. And that's the other side of what you guys do as Solar Maintenance Pros. There's a lifetime of upkeep on these things. Solar is, for better or worse, not a set it and forget it kind of proposition. On the Solar Maintenance Pros side, Chris, what exactly is it that you offer people over there?
Yeah, so we pretty much offer asset management services. You know, if you have a portfolio of stocks and bonds, and you have someone who manages that and gives you feedback and provides oversight so that you can rest easy. Solar systems are really no different. And, you know, solar kind of spawned in the contracting industry. Contractors would provide a quote for, installation of specific equipment. But most folks really underestimated the need for long-term service. And so we have a monitoring department where we keep an eye on people's solar systems. We have a unique software that we utilize that interfaces with the customer and the PG&E and other utilities so that consumption can be monitored as well, because that's really the other half of the equation, as well as a fleet of technicians who are experts who can provide, whether it's a panel cleaning or a visual inspection or troubleshooting, tracing down, electrical issues. Every day that solar system's not producing is a loss for the owner of that solar system. So we pretty much do anything and everything solar, down to critter guard to protect from homing pigeons. So anything you can imagine related to solar after installation is really what we try to provide for any customer who gives us a call.
490-5858 is the number. A call coming in now. Laura, welcome to KMJ. What's your question for Chris Moran?
Yes, we're thinking about buying a house that has solar already on it, and so it's a lease solar program. So we're curious, is that something when you're purchasing the home that you're going to try to finance that lease, or is that something you take out a separate lease? Kind of curious of how to do the home buying process with the lease already on the home.
Yeah, certainly, and that's a great question. So when that system is leased and owned by a leasing company, most of those companies offer a transfer. So, the realtor is going to let you know, hey, we can likely transfer this lease from the current owner to you. Sometimes buyers don't really like taking on that long-term liability. But at the same time, even though our company does not recommend leases for anyone who's looking to add solar to their current home, most of the time that lease is going to save you money compared to what you would have paid the power company anyways. Alternatively, there are cases where the buyer says, nope, no thanks, I'm really not interested, I don't want that long-term liability, in which case the seller has to make the decision whether to pay off that lease in its entirety so that you can then move into the home and have that solar system owned free and clear. So it's really case by case, and if you need kind of a consultation on how to ask the right questions and take a look at that system once you find the house you're interested in, feel free to give us a call. We actually offer realtor services so that we can answer those basic questions. What's the system's longevity? What's the expected production? We're not attorneys, obviously, but we can help answer those really basic questions. Is this system going to benefit me or not?
Chris, I've seen a couple of different situations with leases and power purchase agreements. Like I said, I'm shopping for a house and what seems like a never-ending process. I walked into one house where they told me that the monthly power bill was still $300 a month, and I believe it was the lease agreement was something like $600 a month, and was a requirement of purchasing the house that you take all that on. That's not representative of a good deal. I mean, that's through the roof, right?
No. Yeah, there's a lot of red flags in that summary, I would say, and you know the early benefits that leases provided to customers was that peace of mind, no money down. If something goes wrong with the system, you know they know the solar company will take care of it. And most leases are structured to help customers save somewhere between 15 and 20% compared to their cost of electricity without the system. But no, that combination of figures doesn't really add up. I would definitely be asking a lot of questions if that's what I was hearing.
The deal breaker for me, and this is the part where I knew it was a bad deal, was that they also confessed that the true up was, I think, $2,200.
Ooh.
It was
right.
brutal.
Yikes.
I heard it.
Yeah.
There's no earthly way. I don't pay that much for power if I left my windows open and air conditioned Fresno. 490-5858 is the number. Gary's on the line next, and Gary, you have a question about tax breaks.
Yeah, I was just wondering, thanks, Chris, a question regarding, there's a federal credit. Are there any state credits or any city incentives to put solar in Fresno? And I'll take answer off the air. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no problem. I'm not aware of any local or state subsidies anymore. There are some USDA grants available for agricultural customers who meet certain qualifications, but those are difficult to come by. Right now, the federal tax credit at 26% is the subsidy that really reigns supreme, if you will, in the solar industry. The state rebate program that was offered years ago dried up right around 2012. And so, if anyone tells you that there's a local rebate or something or a state rebate, I would be very cautious.
And another quick one here. This one from John. John, you're on with Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators.
Yes. My question is, we have solar now and with one of your competitors, and we're leasing it, and it is 16.5 cents a kilowatt hour. Okay, after 6 years, you can buy it. Is it worth it for us to buy it after 6 years, or what do you say about that?
There's a lot of questions that have to be asked as to whether I'd recommend purchasing it. What's the purchase price at the 6-year term? Oftentimes we find that the buyout prices for these, PPAs and leases are equivalent or in excess to what you could purchase the same system for, brand new. And that's unfortunate. It's good for the solar company. It's bad for the customer. If you're at 16.5 cents, that is substantially lower than the average cost of power from the local utilities in this area. Feel free to give me a call when that day comes. I can give you some feedback. Most of the time, though, it makes more sense to continue paying the power purchase agreement because the cash price to buy out that system is so high that it can't be justified.
Our guest is Chris Moran with Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros. If you have questions for Chris about solar, get on the phone, 490-5858 or 800-776-5858. When we get back, I want to ask Chris about upgrading systems. There's folks who have gone out, they purchased solar, and maybe the system's aged a little bit. Maybe it turns out that they didn't anticipate correctly their power needs. Is there a way to upgrade a system? Is there a way to expand a system? Is there a way to refresh an existing system to get a little bit more bang for your buck? We'll talk about that when we get back on Ask the Experts. If you have a question for Chris Moran, join us, 490-5858 or 800-776-5858.
How is the coronavirus affecting Valley business? Ask the experts now at 490-5858. This is News Talk 580-1059 KMJ. Here's your host, Philip and Skip.
5:33, it's News Talk 580-1059 KMJ. Ask the Experts underway. Our guest today, Chris Moran from Solar Maintenance Pros and Solar Negotiators, and we're looking for your calls at 490-5858 and 800-776-5858. This is an opportunity for you to talk with somebody who really understands the industry and who can speak to the effects of the current environment on that industry and on how you spend your money. 490-5858, and Jesse's up next. Jesse, thanks for calling. Welcome to KMJ. You're on with Chris Moran.
Hey, Chris. This is Jesse. Thanks for taking my call. Hey, I just bought a house out here in the Bluff area, and it has a pool. Got my first PG&E bill, and I'm kind of shocked. So now I'm looking at solar, and I want zero. I don't want to pay anything to PG&E. I want to have it to where I have a credit. Is that possible?
Yeah, so great question, and congrats on the new house. So PG&E has, and every utility, frankly, has what we call minimum charges. And if you design your solar system properly and expectations for consumption are set properly, we can get the power bill down to about $10 to $20 per month. $10, it's actually 32 cents per day, which, $10 per month. And then what are called non-bypassable charges. Those can't be avoided. So we consider that our virtual zero. However, there is a way, it's called net surplus compensation, where if a customer overproduces during a given year, it's possible to receive a credit on the bill at the end of your true-up cycle. However, there's not really a reason to overbuild the system unless you plan to use that additional power for additional consumption for an electric car, air conditioner, or whatever else. So because it's really pennies on the dollar, it comes out to a few cents per kilowatt, which is less than a sixth lower than the average cost per, So I have a lot of customers say, look, I want to have no power bill ever again. We can get you really close to that. Obviously, gas is still, purchased, but that $10 to $20 range is kind of your zero.
Chris, there's always somebody out there who's got that mad scientist idea of, I don't just want to have zero power bill in that. I want to produce enough power and enough of an excess to cover those fees. There's always the mad scientist who wants to put $100,000 worth of Tesla batteries on the wall of their garage and just go off grid. Is that legal yet? So, true off grid in an urban area like this is not really feasible. However, you can be grid independent, and the new batteries and the way you can stack them, it's a lot of electrical work. You need sufficient solar, but I call it grid independence, where if that breaker, if you could pop the breaker off, or if the utility grid went down and there's sufficient sunshine and you understand your consumption habits and what's drawing power, you can pretty much take the house to where you don't actually need the grid, but it is a very large investment. The cost of the batteries to accomplish that is going to scare pretty much everyone away. But it is possible. And I've got a system on my house. It's 2 different solar systems, 2 different sets of batteries, critical load panels, where pretty much my whole house is backed up. I did that a few years ago. But it's not a practical investment for most homeowners.
Chris, with interest rates low right now, I know a lot of folks are looking at refinancing. Would it make sense to use that money to get into purchasing solar right now?
Yeah, so you're going to find some of those, the best interest rates available through a home equity line of credit or a refi. At the same time, solar loans are offered at very low interest rates, and those are fixed as well. So, you talk with your CPA and look at how to maximize your deductions. And, if you refi, what you're doing, though, in that case is you're spreading an investment, you're spreading a debt over 30-year mortgage. And it's not always advisable to roll a $20,000 or $30,000 investment, even if it is at a nice 3.5% interest rate over 30 years. You're going to pay a lot of interest. Whereas, if you go with a 10 or 12-year solar term, if you're able to take that tax credit money and apply it to that initial loan, you can buy the principal down, and oftentimes those options have a lower monthly payment. So it's all case by case, but there are a lot of folks who are thinking that very thing, going to their brokers right now and looking for a refi, and solar is towards the top of their list for purchase.
If you have a question for Chris Moran, join us now, 490-5858, or 800-776-5858. Gwen's next. Welcome to KMJ. You're on with Chris Moran.
Hi, thanks for having me on. I have a kind of a complicated question, but I'll try to make it as simple as I possibly can. My parents had a reverse mortgage on their home, and 5 years, my dad was 76 years old when he took out a 25-year lease on a solar system. Long story short, bad. We ended up not being able to do a deed in lieu. The house wasn't worth what the balance was. So we had to foreclose on it because there was a $21,000 lien for the solar. So my question is, and my mom passed away, my dad is now here in town in care. The house was supposed to be foreclosed upon on Valentine's Day. Does the solar company have any recourse to come after me, or did the person who bought the foreclosed property have to take care of that?
Ooh, you're absolutely correct. That is a complex situation. Because of how many variables are involved there, I would probably have to defer to a real estate attorney. Reverse mortgages kind of are the bump in the night, if you will, when it comes to solar systems. Most of the time they're not compatible. I'm not sure I could offer good counsel on that. I'd probably have to recommend you talk with someone who can consider all of those factors and give you good legal advice. I apologize, Gwen, that I don't feel comfortable giving you any direction left or right because I don't want to give you bad information.
That's pretty deep voodoo. That's a lot of layers of trouble there. I think that you're spot on with talking to a real estate attorney. Chris, for somebody who already has solar, they're in their home, they're not going anywhere, they're going to be present for the long haul, and they've discovered that the solar installation they had done 5 years ago, 10 years ago, isn't adequate for their needs. That maybe they put in a pool, maybe the kids came home from college and watched TV all day, whatever it might be. How difficult is it to add on to a solar system that's been in play for a little while?
Yeah, great question, and that's one of the more common situations we find ourselves in with customers who they give us a call and say, "Look, I have a true-up bill. I went solar with another company 6 years ago. What do I do?" If all the opportunities to reduce the consumption have been exhausted through good investments in efficiency upgrades like insulation, LED lights, appliances, adding solar to a home is not difficult at all. In fact, it's becoming more and more common. So there are some considerations that can trigger things like a main panel upgrade, that can cost an extra couple $1,000s. But there's no limitation on federal tax credits for residential solar. So if you already got a tax credit, you can get a second one. Double check with your CPA. Got to say that always. And you may trigger a true-up. So if you're 6 months into your current true-up cycle and you go and get a new system and then it's permitted and interconnected, you're going to start a new cycle. They're going to force you to pay the balance up to that point in the cycle and then start a new one. It also may change you from net energy metering or NEM 1, which is the old rules that solar customers were under in regards to how they were accredited for their power and their minimum bills. In the old days, you only paid $5 a month, and you didn't have to pay those non-bypassable charges. If you add a secondary system, it will trigger NEM 2, which takes you from that $5 a month to the $10 a month and those non-bypassable charges. But there are financing options available for this, and I would recommend to a customer if that solar system is designed with other energy efficiency measures in mind, it can be a very, very good investment if that customer expects to be in the home for a long time.
Chris, now that we're talking about installation, I had a question about tariffs and the shutdown of trade that's happened, getting back to COVID-19. Has that impacted your guys getting what they need to do installations?
Yeah, so that was one of the bigger concerns that we were worried about when this began. There have not been what I would say substantial interruptions in the supply chain so far. However, utility companies are pulling back on their availability to come out to the house, shut the power down, if you have to do an electrical upgrade of some kind. But at the moment, we haven't seen any immediate problems that have prevented operation to continue with good practices for distancing in place.
Has there been any issue with the embargoes and then the tariffs and all of that? Do we see more panels coming from China or from the Koreas, or is that kind of a blended question?
That's a good question, and I didn't touch on that. Apologies, Skip. The tariffs have actually triggered a lot of manufacturers to begin manufacturing here in the U.S. Some companies are like LG, Qcell, some of the bigger manufacturers. Yeah, they did. They pulled out of those countries that were imposing those tariffs because they were substantial. A lot of them, exist in South Korea and other areas that are exempt from the tariff, but we have not seen a real change in the cost of solar panels. It's actually remained pretty stable over the last few years.
So even though we've brought manufacturing back to the United States, now is there a oh God, I don't know how to phrase this exactly right. Is there any effort on the part of manufacturers to charge a premium to be able to put that Made in America sticker, or are they still concerned with building them as cost efficiently as possible?
I'd say both, actually, and the overall demand for solar worldwide has kept, downward pressure on the pricing of panels. So you've got major improvements in the efficiency of the manufacturing process that are simultaneously happening with what are the the increases in cost for things like labor for here in the United States. So once again, it's kind of we were expecting some increases in cost as a result of those tariffs, but they never really showed up, which is good for solar consumers.
And for somebody who's got the system in place, things are mostly adequate. I kind of want to switch back to the solar maintenance side for a minute.
Sure.
When you send a crew out, you've got somebody who maybe they did an installation with you a while back, or maybe they got an installation elsewhere, but they're going to engage solar maintenance pros to come out. Do you have an average number for the improvement in efficiency, what's the word I'm looking for?
That your services, is there a certain percentage of improvement once you come in and do what you need to do for maintenance?
Great question. So most people think panel cleaning. That's kind of the instinctive, that's where your brain goes when you think of solar maintenance, and that's a big part of our service. The return on investment is not limited to just the production increase that comes from clean panels. We do see that solar panels can produce as much as 25% more once they're cleaned because of the soiling issues we have here in the Central Valley with our air quality. And if we were in San Diego with a solar maintenance company, our core services might be heavier weighted on a different service. But here in the Valley, panel cleaning is a big part of it. However, those panels do get dirty relatively quickly again. So there's kind of a sweet spot depending on the system size as well as the location for the customer. If they're out in the ag areas where, spraying for crops and other things, or that can accelerate the soiling issues. And then there are times of year when you want to be performing those services and times of year when it's not really effective. But we also say, look, it's not just the panel cleaning. It's that visual inspection. It's the preventative maintenance. It's identifying debris underneath the system, verifying that the inverter and the fans are blown out if they're stationary. So it's a combination, and then a lot of people don't account for lost production. And one of the parts of our software is to identify underproduction issues that might go fly under the radar for other types of monitoring software that just look for on or off. So it's really a combination of protection for the system, increased production, reduced downtime. I'd say the combination of those fundamentals are what give you the lifetime savings that you're looking for out of your solar system.
Today's guest for the installment of Ask the Experts is Chris Moran with Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros. If you've got a question for Chris, this is the last call for your calls. 490-5858 is the number. Ask the Experts with Philip and Skip continues next on News Talk 580 and 105.9 KMJ. Rolling up on 6 o'clock at News Talk 580, 105.9 KMJ. Another installment of Ask the Experts underway. Our expert today is Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators and Solar Maintenance Pros. Chris, I really appreciate you carving an hour out to talk with us today, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Chris, if I'm somebody that wants to come in the next couple of weeks or call you up because of social distancing and get the process started, how long between signing the papers and getting on board and getting my savings from my system?
Great question. Average turnaround times for most systems is between 50 and 60 days. The things that can push that out are the need for, like I said, a main panel change that requires the involvement of the utility company. But most permitting departments get the permits out pretty quickly, and installation can turn. Interconnection can take up to 30 business days, which can frustrate customers when they see the solar on their roof, but they're not allowed to turn it on. Very few customers have to wait longer than 75 days from the moment they make that first call and get things moving with a solar agreement to when that solar system gets turned on and starts spinning the meter backwards.
Chris, for folks that want to get in touch with you off the air, what's the best number to do so?
Yeah, you can reach us here at the office at 559-447-1557. We've got our kind of toll-free number at 844-OWN-SOLAR, and you can call us anytime. And, if anyone would like to speak with me personally, they're welcome to ask for me, and I'll take the call if I'm able.
Chris, we got one more question here I think we're going to have time for. David, we got just a minute left with Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators. Go.
Yeah, quick question. Your solar maintenance product, is that just for systems that you install, or can it be added to an existing solar system on my house?
No, we adopt solar systems from other providers on a daily basis. So, we'd be happy to give you a quote for our monitoring and cleaning and inspection services. We'd be eager to help you.
Chris, thank you again for the time, man. We are out of time. We got to run.
Hey, thanks, Philip. Thanks, Skip. Have a good night.
Have a great night. Chris Moran, Solar Negotiators for KMJ's Ask the Experts. You can find Solar Negotiators online at solarnegotiators.com. You can find Solar Maintenance Pros online. Surprise, everybody. solarmaintenancepros.com. If you want to get in touch with Chris on the phone, it's 844-OWN-SOLAR, 844-OWN-SOLAR. Thank you to Chris Moran from Solar Negotiators for giving us a full hour for tonight's installment of Ask the Experts on News Talk 580 and 105.9 KMJ. We've got an update of headlines on the way in just a minute from Aaron Abadia in the KMJ newsroom, and then the great one, Mark Levin, joins us at the top of the hour, 6 o'clock. If you want to take us on the road, grab the TuneIn app, free in the Google Play and iOS stores. Not only can you listen to KMJ live anywhere, you'll get podcasts from The Afternoon Drive, Mark Levin, Armstrong and Getty, and a lot more. Check out TuneIn Radio in the Google Play and iOS stores. Guys, we got to get. Thank you. Have a good night.
See you back here tomorrow.